So I guess it's time for my annual Is Kirk Cousins a Problem in Minnesota video. It's just becoming a more and more interesting conversation to have, I think. Kirk Cousins definitively is not a bad quarterback. He puts up good numbers and is a solid player. He's not a bad quarterback by any means, but of course, since he has this huge contract, and since expectations were so high for the Vikings, it definitely is kind of disappointing for Vikings fans about how he's played. I think on one hand, it's a bit unfair to compare him to other players getting paid the same amount of money as him, just because, he should be compared just by his own merits, not necessarily how much money he's getting. But at the same time, when it's a salary cap league, you do kind of have to compare him to the money he's getting. So while it is a little bit unfair, because what's he supposed to do? Not take a big contract? Of course he should take as much money as he wants. But the flip side is, well, if you do take that big contract, people are going to compare you to Aaron Rodgers and to other players that are making that huge amount of money. I mean, as of right now, Kirk Cousins is the highest paid quarterback who isn't making $30 million a year. He's making $28 million a year, and there are 5 quarterbacks making more than him. But those 5 guys are Russell Wilson, Ben Roethlisberger, Aaron Rodgers, Carson Wentz, and Matt Ryan. Obviously, Roethlisberger and Rodgers will most likely be Hall of Famers. Russell Wilson and Matt Ryan, they both have an outside shot of making the Hall of Fame, and even Carson Wentz could potentially be a Hall of Famer. Although he's obviously got a long way to go because he's still very young. So when you do have that big contract, people are going to nitpick every little thing you do, and there's reasons for it because you have a big contract. But at the same time, when you're a likable guy and a quarterback, people are also going to praise everything you do and make a bunch of excuses. So where do I line up in this? Well, I try to look at these things objectively. I try to not, let one thing cloud my judgment. But let's just jump into my breakdown of how he played against Green Bay, because it wasn't just a total disaster. He did have some good plays. Like if we take a look at this one, it's going to be a cover 3 zone. And here's how it's going to work for Minnesota. They're going to be running play action, which makes a lot of sense when Dalvin Cook has had so much success. Run some play action, and then hopefully you can get linebackers to move in and throw it over them, and that's what they're going to do by having a receiver run that route right there, which could get into a gap in coverage, and then Cousins is going to want to make this throw. Good play call, something you will see pretty frequently, but after the ball is snapped, one thing you'll notice is that pressure is going to get there. Cousins is in trouble here. As of right now, there is pressure coming towards him, so what he's simply going to do is step up in the pocket, which is what you have to do here. Because now he can simply get out of that pressure, and if you look, now there is a Viking who's wide open, because the play did work even though pressure got to Cousins pretty quickly. But then of course the flip side is, well yes, okay, Cousins got around the pressure and there is a receiver wide open, but he's going to have to make an on-the-run throw, which is not necessarily too easy. However, he is able to make a pretty good off-balance throw. He hits Adam Thielen and they get the ball inside the 30, so very good play from Cousins on that one. He's not a bad player, that's why I keep saying that. He can make some good plays. I mean, there is absolutely a reason why the Vikings went out and paid him the money that they paid him. He was their best option at the time, and maybe he's a bit overpaid, but he still is a good quarterback. And I also felt like early on, really nothing was working for Minnesota, and it wasn't just Kirk Cousins. Like on this play, it's going to be a cover 1 hole, and that's Stephon Diggs' route, which is actually pretty great against the cover 1 hole. Since it's the curl route, when he cuts, this now means that there could be some separation in between him and his corner, and since he's Stephon Diggs, he typically gets open pretty well, so that's where Cousins is going to look to throw this ball to. And after this ball is snapped, you'll notice that, okay, well, there's not necessarily a ton of separation necessarily, but the defensive player who's in charge of covering Diggs, his back is turned, Kirk Cousins, he can see his back. And that's a good thing as a quarterback. You always want to be able to see a defensive player's back when it is man coverage, because this now means it's going to be very hard to turn your head around and try to make a play on the ball. So Cousins is going to throw it his way. He makes a good throw, and Diggs just isn't quite able to make the catch. And again, that's not a bad play by Diggs necessarily, but kind of going back to the Cousins thing, we kind of grade these people on curves. If Kirk Cousins was a rookie playing like he had played these first 2 games, we'd be saying, hey, he's a rookie, he's playing fine. But because he's a guy getting a big contract, well, we put him at a higher level. We have higher standards for Kirk Cousins. Well, same thing for Diggs. You're one of the best receivers in the game. Yeah, that's a tough play, but we kind of expect you to make it because you are Stephon Diggs, and he didn't make it that time. Oftentimes he will make those catches, but this time he wasn't able to. But it was a good throw from Kirk Cousins, and it just, sometimes things just don't work out. So that's why I'm kind of showing these plays. He did things right. It wasn't just him that was the problem. I'm not saying he didn't have problems, he absolutely did, but also his teammates weren't really helping him out a ton. They were kind of helping him out in certain situations, but as a whole, I mean, the whole Vikings team as a unit just has to work on trying to get better. It's not just Kirk Cousins' fault, even though he is kind of the scapegoat. And again, just because Kirk Cousins is being a scapegoat doesn't necessarily mean that he's not doing things wrong as well. It just means that he's kind of getting blamed for everything that goes wrong. Like on this play, it's a cover one blitz, and so it's a 5-man rush here. So for Kirk Cousins, he knows that he might have to get the ball out a little bit quicker than you typically would on a traditional 4-man rush. And if Cousins realizes quickly that that is what's going on, he might want to look at his tight end, because what his tight end is going to do is he's going to first go out to block that Packer right there, but he'll only really do that just to get him out of position a little bit, and then he will run a route to the flat on the bottom half of the screen. It's kind of a dump-off route, but it is a way to guarantee you get a few yards if the pressure does come to you quickly. I'm not saying that should be Cousins' first read on this play, but that's your if all else fails, break glass in case of emergency, dump it off to your tight end right there. And after the ball is snapped, as you notice, it's an emergency, so you're going to have to break the glass. I mean, there's pressure coming right towards Cousins. Sure, you would like to see the offensive line hold a little bit better, but okay, they didn't, so now you have to make a play. And so again, Cousins should know, okay, when there's pressure, I know where I have to throw the ball to. It's to my tight end right there, who, as you see, is just wide open in the flat. Maybe this play won't go for 20 yards, but honestly, it could go for 5 yards. It could go for a decent gain. It could go for 20 yards if he can run after the catch well. I mean, there's plenty of separation. But more importantly, that should be where Kirk Cousins is looking right after he sees that his play isn't going to work out too well, but that is not where he's looking. Those are the two routes Kirk Cousins wanted to throw the ball to before the snap. Those were the two routes he was looking to throw the ball to, and if you look at him now, he's still looking to throw the ball in those directions, even though it's taking a little bit of time for those routes to develop. Cousins doesn't have time here, and again, your 31-year-old, $28 million a year quarterback should know at this point to take a dump off. That's kind of what you're paying him to do. But he doesn't take the dump off, and he not only takes a sack, but he fumbles the football and loses the football. The Packers were able to recover it. So were there other things that kind of factored into that? Well, I mean, sure, yeah. I mean, you know, the offensive line could have played better on that one. It is worth mentioning. The receivers could have gotten open a little bit quicker. Also worth mentioning. But the biggest player who made a mistake on that one was Cousins. You just have to realize the dump off is coming and hit it there quickly. And I know, listen, it's hard, right? It is hard to get it over to that tight end quickly. It's hard to realize what's going on and make a decision that quickly. It's a lot easier for me to sit up here and watch this game and then say, oh, look, he made a mistake. It is, but that's why they're paying you $28 million a year, to make those types of decisions. But again, I don't want to sit here and just bash Kirk Cousins. I don't think Kirk Cousins is a bad player by any means. He's a mediocre or even above average starting level quarterback. I do feel that way. He didn't play his best game against Green Bay, and honestly, that probably is Kirk Cousins' biggest problem. It's not so much the fact that he's a bad player as much as he's just inconsistent. Good Kirk Cousins is good, but bad Kirk Cousins is definitely very bad. And, you know, he had some good plays against Green Bay too. He wasn't a disaster. Like, there was this one. It actually didn't count because of a penalty that I just hated, but the way it's going to work is that if you look at right over there, there's a cluster of Packers and Vikings right over there. It means several things, but the key thing it means is that this is probably man coverage, which typically you'll run man coverage in a goal line situation anyways, so that's not really saying too much, but this makes it pretty much 100% chance that it's going to be man coverage, which is good because Diggs is running that route right there. So you would say, well, then that's great. You know, Diggs is running a route right there, easy way to get a touchdown. Although, worth mentioning, that's actually not Kirk Cousins' first read on this one. Honestly, it probably should have turned into his first read on this one, but that's not it. His first read is on the top half of the screen, and so after the ball is snapped, that is where he's going to look. I mean, as you see, he takes his drop back, and he's looking up to the top half of the screen, trying to see if something's open, but he's going to realize that nothing is open there. And so if you look at Diggs, he is open right here, so now Kirk Cousins, once he gets off his first read, he should try to look over and make that throw. But also, one thing worth mentioning is that there's just going to be something very minor that happens up at the top half of the screen. I'm going to try not to beat on the refs too much, but I actually really hate what happened on this play. There's a little bit of contact right there with Dalvin Cook and a Green Bay defender, but Kirk Cousins is still going to make a very good throw. He gets a touchdown out of it. It's a good job to come off your first read, find someone else who's open, and get a touchdown out of it. So that should have been a touchdown in my opinion. However, kind of all of our worst fears against this replay review thing were realized with this play, where there was some minor contact that happens in the end zone, which honestly happens on so many touchdowns, or just really plays like that in general. But this time they reviewed it and they recalled that it's going to be offensive pass interference, which I just personally hate. Not because there was nothing there was something there. I do have to be honest, there was a little something there. But to me, that would have been a very ticky-tacky call if they called it just in real time. And so, especially with a review, that's just completely defeating the purpose of a review. What did everyone say this offseason? It's only going to be used in the clear and obvious situations. Well, that's not clear nor obvious. I don't even think that should have been pass interference. If anything, that should have been illegal contact downfield, but that's not pass interference. I don't think he interfered with that ball being caught by that Green Bay defender. I really don't. I don't see it that way. But also, the only reason why the NFL made that reviewable was because of the Rams-Saints thing that went on. They wanted the clear and obvious, and not even just clear and obvious, but the ones that you look at one replay and you're like, yep, that should be a penalty, and then you can figure out what's going on. But it's been proven in other sports, and I think it'll be proven in this sport as well, that replaying judgment calls, it just never works. There's too many little things that go on and too many small unintended consequences that go on, and I'm okay with some bad calls happening. That's not the end of the world in my opinion. The egregious ones are frustrating, but a little ticky-tacky pass interference down the field not getting called, in my opinion, I don't care. Like, I'm fine with that not being called. I mean, even the Packers players on the field weren't complaining about it being a flag, so I did not like that call at all. I won't rant for too much, but that's just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think. Maybe you guys like it. I don't love it, but anyways, we'll just move on. One thing that should be mentioned, though, is that even though I didn't love the call, what do great players do? They find ways to overcome bad calls and still get touchdowns on that drive. And so for Kirk Cousins and the rest of the Vikings offense, they would have a chance to do that on this play. So the way this play is going to work for Minnesota is it's going to be zone coverage, and they have a tight end running that route right there, which could actually be a great route in this situation. It's going to get into a gap in coverage, so this definitely is a place Kirk Cousins should look to throw the ball to. However, he also shouldn't force anything here. It's a 3rd down and 13, and it's, still in the first half, so you don't want to force anything here. You look to see if it's going to get open, but if it doesn't get open, no big deal. You throw it through the goalpost, and then you kick a field goal, and then it's a 11-point game instead of what it is now, which is a 14-point game. But after the ball is snapped, one thing you're going to notice is that this play does work out. I mean, look, he's open. Not wide open. There are 3 Packers who are all in the area, but keep in mind that the Cousins' target is moving to the left side of the screen, so he will have a window he can try to fit this ball through. Not a huge window, but you would see Drew Brees, who, I know, again, unfair to compare Kirk Cousins to Drew Brees, but it kind of is a little bit fair because the Vikings are paying Kirk Cousins more than the Saints are paying Drew Brees as of this year. But you would see a lot of great quarterbacks make this throw. So will Kirk Cousins make this throw? Actually, no. He throws the ball a bit too high. So again, I kind of hate that I keep bringing up the contract, but it's hard to talk about him without bringing up the contract. I'm sure you guys kind of understand why I am bringing it up, even though I do keep dwelling on it. Or maybe you don't, and you're yelling at your phone or laptop or whatever you're watching this on, saying, Jackson, we get it. He's not worth the contract. We understand. But either way, there was one last play that this was probably the biggest mistake for Minnesota of the game. While they did actually get one more drive after this, I mean, this is the key play. There's 5.5 minutes left. Minnesota is down 5 points, and this is a 1st down and goal. So for Minnesota, you punch the ball in, and it's a brand new ball game. Now you have to have Aaron Rodgers go down the field and see what he can do. So this is definitely a key play in this ball game. While personally, I kind of like running the ball in this situation, they're going to run play action here, which I don't hate at all either, actually. Green Bay is going to be expecting a run, so you run play action, this can definitely hopefully get somebody open. What they're going to do is fake a handoff to the top half of the screen, and then Cousins will break down to the bottom half of the screen. From there, you'll have Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen's the guy on the bottom half of the screen running the route before it gets to the end zone, and then Diggs will be the guy running the route into the end zone. Both of these will be cutting through the bottom half of the screen, and hopefully for Minnesota, one will get open. And so after this ball is snapped, both guys are currently running their routes, and Kirk Cousins, as you see him right now, he has to move because there is pressure. While typically you want to do your best to get your feet planted, you kind of can't on this one. There is pressure. Maybe he could have a little bit, but it's kind of tough. He does kind of have to make a throw off balance. So at this point for Cousins, I would say throw it right there. Throw it to Adam Thielen, pick up 5 yards or so. Probably won't be a touchdown, but it might be. I mean, Adam Thielen could potentially get around a tackle and get into the end zone for a touchdown. Although keep in mind, Thielen would have to run towards Cousins if he made this throw, so it wouldn't be as automatic. I think that's what I would recommend here. For Kirk Cousins, take a shorter throw. It's okay. But it also should be mentioned, I know it kind of looked like it was a terrible throw to make when you watched the broadcast because it looked like he threw it in the double coverage, but if you look at where Diggs is right now, he appears to be open. He's not wide open by any means, but he is a little bit open. And you know who feels that he's open? Well, Stephon Diggs. He's calling for the ball right now. He's telling Cousins to throw it in his direction. It kind of looked like it was double coverage, but that's largely just because of that Packer right there is going to do a great job of breaking back and trying to get into this play, even though he doesn't actually get into the play. But this is a one-on-one matchup in the end zone with who he feels is a great receiver in Stephon Diggs, because he is a great receiver, and so he's going to take a chance. I could hate on the decision all I wanted to, but I mean, at the end of the day, sometimes you got to give your players a chance, even though it's 1st down, and I still would have recommended going to Adam Thielen. The real mistake, I think, is just the throw itself. I mean, he throws off balance and just throws a duck up there that's easily going to be intercepted. That's just a bad throw more than it was a bad decision, in my opinion. I really think the move there is to hit Thielen, just pick up some yards, but at the end of the day, he tried something, it didn't work out. I do kind of understand what he was doing. I think some people said this is the worst interception they've ever seen. It's not that bad. It's not a great decision, but it's not I understand what he was trying to do, even if I do disagree with it. So while I have been hard on Kirk Cousins in other respects earlier on in this game, this one I'm a bit more forgiving on. It's going to happen, but it was the worst possible outcome to a bad decision. So yeah, that's what I thought of Cousins' performance against Green Bay. Let me know what you guys think. Always love hearing from you, and as always, thanks for watching.